Today, I'm going to look at the top 20 highest rated animated movies on IMDb. For those of you who don't know, IMDb is the International Movie Database, a website you can use to find information on just about any professionally made movie out there. IMDb also gives users the ability to rate movies they've seen on a scale from 1 to 10. So we're going to see what the users think the top 20 best animated movies are. So here we have our list, and my own little PNG avatar guy. I made him just for this. He's a little wonky, but he gets the job done. Alright, right off the bat, I can see a lot of Disney and Pixar, which I guess is to be expected of. When most people think of animation, this is what probably comes to mind for them. I actually don't know how the ranking works on this site. I initially thought that they took the highest ratings with the most votes, but after looking into some of them, some movies with lower votes, or some movies with less amount of votes, are placed higher than the ones that do. Honestly, this is probably more like a popularity list than anything else, but I'll roll with it for now. I think I'm just gonna go 5 at a time for this. It feels more convenient for me. I'm just looking at whether I think they should be on a list like this or not. Fortunately, I have seen all of these films, so I have somewhat of an opinion on them. I will have more to say about some films over others, but I'll do my best to give my thorough thoughts. 20 through 16 we have How to Train Your Dragon, Monsters Inc., Inside Out, Ratatouille, and Klaus. Or Klaus. I'm gonna say Klaus. Starting with How to Train Your Dragon. I think How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda can be interchangeable here. I think both films are really good, especially for when they came out. I don't know about anyone else, but I remember a lot of people not really appreciating Pixar. I remember a lot of people not really appreciating DreamWorks back in the day, myself included, unfortunately. People sort of saw DreamWorks as a knockoff Pixar and didn't really take the studio that seriously until maybe Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon were released. Both films show the caliber that DreamWorks is capable of and had people somewhat take interest in them again. But like I said, this could just be me, and that's how I remember it. I do like How to Train Your Dragon just a smidge more than Kung Fu Panda. Both franchises are really enjoyable. I do like the world building and music more in How to Train Your Dragon than I do in Kung Fu Panda. Monsters Inc. is simply a classic. I don't think I'm in the minority here when I say that this is one of Pixar's best films of all time. This film took the pre-existing premise of monsters living in your closet and expands upon it. They create a whole entire world within these closets and gives us a compelling reason to why monsters come through our closets and harvest the screams of children. The chemistry between all the main characters is probably what makes this movie so memorable, especially between Boo and Sully. Honestly, anything pre-2010 Pixar can be up here and I wouldn't complain much. All of those films are peak creativity. Now, Inside Out, on the other hand, I think I have somewhat of a hot take about Inside Out, but hear me out. I do like this movie. I think it's really well made and has a good story, but I don't really think it's as amazing as some people make it out to be. Certainly not top 20 of all time. Sure, it explores how human emotions work in an interesting way, but there's just something about this film that felt flat or missing. I can't really put my finger on it. It probably doesn't help that I haven't seen this in a few years. I think another reason why a lot of people like this movie is that it came out during a time where Pixar was having a little rough patch. This was when Brave, The Good Dinosaur, Cars 2 came out, and those aren't really the highest regarded Pixar movies. So I think when Inside Out came out, people were just deprived of a classic Pixar experience. And as much as it is, I don't think it is as good as the other Pixar movies from pre-2010. But when this came out, I think people saw this as a return to form for Pixar. So they were just kind of hyped up for what more was in store and all. Now, Ratatouille, I am biased towards, and I'm trying not to be. This is my favorite Pixar film of all time, and one of my favorite films of all time. So of course I'm gonna think that it belongs up here. I love its theme. Not anyone can become a great artist, but great artists can come from anywhere. It takes that saying and uses a literal rat to demonstrate what it means, but also showing that even though Linguini has the makings of a great artist, it couldn't make him one. It didn't discourage him though. Linguini was still able to find a way to help out where he could. The theme is realistic, but also inspiring. I want to see more animated films that tackle subjects like this in a positive way, just as this film did. I think if you are an artist or someone who is striving to become an artist or someone who just loves to create, you will connect with this more than others. One other thing I want to mention about this film, and this is just a nitpick I have with other films, but I commend that they use French accents in this movie. Whether they be good French accents or not, I mean, to me they sound fine. Usually when movies take place in Europe, they tend to give everyone British accents. It bothers me so much, although Ratatouille doesn't do this. And I really appreciate it. It just adds to the immersion of this film. I think Klaus is solely up here for the animation style. People really love how it looks, and I'll admit it's amazing. It's one of my favorite animation techniques that I've seen in recent times. Probably one of the most innovative ones as well, but the story didn't really stand out. It's not bad, it's just, you know, it's just good. It's charming and simple and feel good, so I understand why people like it, but I guess I was looking for something more outstanding story-wise when going into this film. I remember when this came out, I did hear a lot of good things about it, so maybe my expectations were raised a little bit. It does feel like Christmas movies have sort of died out in recent times, so it was a little nice to get a quote-unquote modern Christmas movie. I do think this is one of the best Christmas movies out there, so it has that going for it. 15 through 11, we have Demon Slayer Mugen Train, Finding Nemo, Howl's Moving Castle, Toy Story 3, and Princess Mononoke. I really don't want to talk about this one. Mugen Train, in my opinion, should not be up here. It's just a long anime episode. It's fine, it's an enjoyable movie, but just not what I'm looking for in a film. It's your typical shonen anime movie. Frankly, I'm not a fan of these types of movies, and I didn't really understand all the hype when it came out. I enjoyed it, yeah, but it's nothing special apart from the animation during the fight sequences. Objectively, there are so many other movies you could watch in its place when trying to find a really good animated movie. I don't think it should be anywhere near this quote-unquote top 20. I have neutral feelings about Finding Nemo being up here. Personally, I think I would have put something else in its place, like The Incredibles, but I don't mind it being here, and because of that, I don't have much to say about it. I am a little conflicted about Howl's Moving Castle being up here. I recognize that it has its merits and is very popular amongst Ghibli fans, but when I compare this to the other works of Hayao Miyazaki, I love his other films much more. While I still really like this film, this isn't one of my favorites from Miyazaki, or even Ghibli. Funnily enough, I believe Miyazaki has claimed that this is his favorite film that he has made. Don't quote me on that. If you really look into Ghibli's filmography, you'll see that the studio has much more to offer than just Miyazaki. So it all really comes down to preference. I can see this being on other lists similar to this one, but personally, I would put something else. Toy Story 3 is one of the few films in recent times that was able, I say recent, this was 13 years ago. Anyways. Toy Story 3 is one of the few films in recent times that was able to properly end an iconic trilogy. The franchise has spanned 15 years at this point, having an adult audience by the time the third entry came out, and it knew it. Toy Story 3 cleverly used that to its advantage and was able to compose a meaningful and impactful message to the audience that grew up with this franchise. I've actually seen Toy Story 4, and by itself, it's okay. It's not bad by any means, although it does feel like it negates the impact that the third movie had, so I think that's what leaves a sour taste in people's mouths. Toy Story 3 is the perfect ending to this franchise, and they should just stop milking it. Princess Mononoke is one of my all-time favorite films. This was the second Ghibli film that I had ever seen in theaters, and I remember falling in love with it when watching it for the first time. The opening sequence with the demon chase is one of the best opening sequences that I had ever seen in cinema. I love how the scope of the world gradually grows as the film progresses. The music is outstanding, and there's just so much that I love about this film. Every time I watch it, I'm reminded of why I love animation. This is definitely my favorite film by Miyazaki, and bias aside, I do think that it is up here deservedly. One other thing that made me fall in love with this is how it integrates Japanese mythology within the story. Not really retelling an old tale, but kind of using it as like a back setting, and I just love that. Wow, The first three right away are Pixar. Up, Toy Story, and WALL-E. As good as I think Up is, I think what people really remember about this film are the first 5 to 10 minutes of the film, more specifically the married life sequence. And for good reason. That sequence is able to communicate a powerful story in a short time span with almost no dialogue. That's not to say the rest of the film isn't good, it's great in fact, but it couldn't really reach that emotional level again in my opinion. Some part of me kind of wishes that the movie was more about Carl and Ellie, but I understand the direction they went in. I think this is a really deep movie. I just don't think Up is one of the more rewatchable movies from Pixar. Personally, I would have Ratatouille up here. I love Ratatouille much more than Up. Similar to what I said about Monsters Inc., the first Toy Story is iconic. It was the first CG animated feature film to be released, and it was a massive success. The CG hasn't really aged the best, but the film is still 100% watchable because of how good it is. The characters have great chemistry, the humor is well done, and the story offers a lot of fun and touching moments. Honestly, the aged CG just gives the movie more charm. I think this is one of those movies that virtually everyone has seen. As for WALL-E, I love the first half of this film, but whenever I talk to others about this movie, it seems like people are divided about how they feel about the first half. If you know me, you know that I love the whole showing not telling style of filmmaking, and the first half of WALL-E masterfully does that. We're able to determine what happened to Earth, we get to see how WALL-E spends his daily life, we also see what his personality is like. Frankly, I actually start losing interest once dialogue starts becoming more present in the film. I don't know, there's just something about it that makes me lose intrigue. But that's just me. The whole showing aspect of the film just feels more universal and I feel like connects with more people. After WALL-E, we have Your Name. I'm actually really surprised to see Your Name up here. I think this is my favorite Shinkai film. I just didn't think it got that much attention outside of Japan. Although it was a massive hit after all, so maybe that has something to do with it. Nonetheless, it is a wonderful film and it is a fresh-ish take on the whole boy meets girl premise. It is one of the best looking anime films out there and the music provided by Radwimps is excellent. It really captures the tone and the atmosphere of the film. If you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts about this film, I actually have a video where I go over it. So if you have time, why not check it out? The situation that Coco is in was sort of similar to Inside Out's, that being Pixar was releasing quote-unquote duds. So when Coco came out, again, people were glad to see another good Pixar movie. This film in particular, I love how it was able to take aspects of Mexican culture and folklore and integrate it into a heartfelt story. You can tell that Pixar approached this film with care and accurately depicted the culture that they were portraying. The Land of the Dead is visually stunning and probably one of my favorite settings in a CG animated film. I'm hoping that Pixar does branch out and starts doing more films about different cultures. They kind of are already. They've done it with Turning Red and sort of with Elemental. I think they approach them more in a way like they did with Coco. Where they integrate the folklore or the fantastical elements of these foreign cultures. They can make really good films. While I'm on the subject of Spider-Verse, or Into the Spider-Verse, I might as well talk about both movies since I have similar thoughts and opinions on them. These films have revolutionized the landscape of animation. They have combined 2D and 3D elements in such an ingenious, okay. They have combined 2D and 3D elements in such an ingenious way, and now we have other films and shows that have taken inspiration from Spider-Verse and trying to implement this style into their own work. Watching these films is like putting yourself through a visual overload, but in a good way. I feel like every time you rewatch these films, you'll probably be able to find something new in the background or something going on in the background that you didn't notice before. On top of all that, these films provide a heartfelt and profound coming-of-age story. I think anyone who just even likes animation would agree how great these films are. Grave of the Fireflies is one of the first mature animated films that I've seen. I mean that in the sense of just how heavy and bleak the subject matter is. When it comes to war films in general, a lot of them like to depict the action of the war and the horrors of it. But Grave of the Fireflies takes a different approach. Instead of depicting the action of war, it gives us the perspective of children during the war on the home front and how they attempted to survive in the environment that they were living in. With that being said, there isn't a lot of disturbing imagery, but more heartbreaking circumstances that shows that war can also be felt on the home front. And I think that because it doesn't show the violence or the gore of war, it is able to reach a wider audience and spread the message of how destructive war can be. In the world of animation, Grave of the Fireflies is one of the most powerful war films out there. The Lion King is something special. I think just about everyone I know knows what The Lion King is. I think that just goes to show how impactful this movie was. Something about it makes me want to say that this was the pinnacle of Disney 2D animation. I don't think anything was able to recreate the success that The Lion King was able to achieve. Probably a lot of modern Disney fans were made Disney fans from this movie, and it just feels really grand. I know the story probably hasn't aged the best, and what I mean by that is I think a lot of people like to compare it to Hamlet now, but the animation definitely holds up. Animation wise, this is up there, and this movie came out like almost 30 years ago. So yeah, no surprise to see it up here, and I think it definitely deserves to be up here. Spirited Away is one of the most magical films I've seen, and to a lot of people this was their first Ghibli movie, and it just threw you into the deep end when it comes to how weird and mysterious Ghibli can be. But there's like a beauty in all of that that makes you intrigued and wanting more. I honestly don't even fully understand Spirited Away, and that's what makes me keep coming back to it. Each time I feel like I leave something else or with something new, something like I learned something new. It perfectly displays that the only limitation that you have in animation is your own imagination, and that you can create anything. It isn't my most favorite Ghibli film, but I recognize that it's achieved a lot and was really well crafted. And that was the top 20 best animated films according to IMDb. Like I said earlier, this is probably more so a popularity list. While a good portion of these films are deserving of their spots, there are also some that I don't think should be up here. There are a ton of movies that I think were snubbed from this list. A couple being The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, The Prince of Egypt, something from Cartoon Saloon. Hell, I would even say Shrek should be up here. Actually, there's nothing stop motion in here. That's kind of sad. Stop motion is a big part of animation history. Maybe Coraline could have been up here as well. Or Aardman film. I would take these kinds of lists with a grain of salt. These are very subjective. Of course, a lot of these films will be on everybody's list. Maybe one day I'll create not really a top 20, but more of a 20 or 10 recommendations I would give to people who are looking for more animated films. But we'll see. Okay, bye.